Hi guys, I know it's been a little while since my latest film review. I've been just really busy getting out my most recent short films. If you haven't seen my most recent short Follies of Youth, which I'll be submitting to the Maryland Film Festival, go over and check it out. It's in two parts, but it's linked at the very end of the each part, so you'll be able to see everything. We don't have to go around and search for it. But the two films I want to talk about today. Actually, one film is a movie that I saw a while ago. Well, actually, both movies are movies that I saw a while ago, but they're still pretty fresh in my mind. And that's Pier Paolo Pasolini's Salo, or 120 Days of Sodom, and also the movie A Serbian Film. I wanted to do these movies together because they share a lot of the same similar characteristics, as well as a lot of the same things that make me not want to watch the movies again. I will eventually be getting around to doing Salo for a Cinema Historia review, so keep an eye out for that after I'm done the Prophecy series. I'll first go over Salo. Pier Paolo Pasolini is one of my favorite Italian directors. Also, I love his poetry. I have two of his books. And he really is an artist. I really do think that because also, I'm a huge fan of the Marquis de Sade, who wrote the original book 120 Days of Sodom. And the problem is having such brutality and gruesome torture that happens in the book translated to film, one, I think, is practically impossible to do anyway, because, the Marquis de Sade is simultaneously the most uncensored and also the most censored author in history, but Pasolini brought the movie to the screen, brought the story to the screen, and I wanted to talk about it for a second. This film is incredibly well made. The cinematography is beyond reproach. I mean, it is a very beautifully shot movie considering the content. If people don't know what the movie Salo is about, it's pretty much this. Though it's taken a lot of liberties from the original novel from de Sade, it's about a group of Italian fascists during World War II who kind of round up about 19 teenage boys and girls and bring them up to a secluded mansion in which, for 120 days, they systematically torture, abuse, and then finally kill them in some of the worst, sadomasochistic ways. But even though the movie is kind of hard to stomach, especially the one scene where they're making the teenagers kind of walking around on their hands and knees naked on the floor. They shove nails into bread and make them eat it, and you just see the blood coming out of their mouth. There's also this one scene which is, epitomized by the word mangia. It's the fact of the matter. It's the festival. No, it's the Feast of Feces, where all of these people are forced to eat pretty much just shit, and it's at the same time the point that it's trying to make is a statement against fascism, just as the original book was a statement against the lifestyle and the politics of the libertines in France. That it doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard to watch, and because they're making this statement, because they're making such a heavy sociological statement on Italy at the time, it's kind of hard not to appreciate the subtleties in the, I guess you could say, the subtleties in the message, because it's not in your face. It's not a message. It's not messages that you're just kind of like thrown into, like the last year at Marienbad, where the messages of what you're trying to get is just kind of like hidden underneath the subtext. And I think it's a really great art to get people to try to understand how to craft that type of subtext into such a horrific film, because a lot of people will look at it just at its face value, considering that it's a really horrific movie. The acting is actually phenomenal, considering what people have to do in it. The first time I watched this movie was about a year and a half ago, but the problem is I watched it and it had no subtitles and no English dubbing, so I had basically had to just feel my way through it, knowing the book. I had to feel my way through the story all the way through, and then I finally, when I came to UMBC, I found the awesome library of films that they have stocked up here, and I found an English dubbed version of it, and then I was able to watch it, and it truly is a fantastic film. If you can stomach gore like from the Hostel movies and whatnot, you can definitely stomach this movie. It's nowhere near as graphic as a lot of films, but at the same time, it's a lot more disturbing considering what exactly the movie's about. It's a really depressing sit. It's a really, really depressing sit. But at the same time, even though this film is considered to be like one of the most graphic movies, kind of constructed at this time, and I've sat through Cannibal Holocaust, and that movie wasn't, that movie was a really hard sit to get through, mainly because of the animal cruelty in the movie, but more than just what goes on in the film. But those movies kind of pale in comparison to a Serbian film. This movie was first brought to me, I had first heard about it on kind of like rumors on IMDb, and also there was a spot on the web newsletter IndieWire about it, and so I was curious about it, but I really didn't know too much about it. It was kind of shrouded in mystery. And then a friend of mine, Andrew is his name, and he had brought the movie to my attention a while back. Maybe it was about a year ago, give or take. And he said he had seen it twice on a bootleg copy. And he told me all the horrific things that he saw in the movie. And then I began reading interviews with the director, on IndieWire, and there was also, it became available for reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, and so I began looking into it, and just everything about this film was it was every single critic, every single audience member who had seen this movie said, do not see this film. Even Scott Weinberg, who is a huge horror film junkie, who I love his reviews about a lot of horror films, he said that he would never watch the movie again, which was really surprising to me because, he even found, good things to come back to for The Human Centipede, which is another film that was a little hard to stomach. I mean, I have no interest of seeing the second film whatsoever. I don't think the first one warranted a sequel, really. Dr. Heiter was really, kind of an interesting antagonist, but other than that, there's really nothing worth watching the film. But this Serbian film, for those of you who don't know, it's about an out-of-work porn star who's trying to secure a more lucrative way of earning a living for his family. So through a connection through a friend in the industry that he has a connection to, he signs on to what he thinks is an art film, which ends up turning out to be a snuff film. And the problem that really is with this movie is because it is so well made, because it is so well constructed and so well organized and thought out, that it is truly the hardest movie I've ever had to sit through. I never want to watch the movie again, ever. I don't even want to review it insanely in depth. There's this one scene where, for lack of a better term, the main character, I can't, unfortunately the Serbian names are really hard for me to pronounce, so I'm not even going to try. He's literally raping a woman in the ass, and during that, he chops off her head and then he starts skull fucking the skull, and I'm like, okay, that scene alone was unbelievably graphic, and the way the cinematography was done, it made everything look incredibly realistic, which is, by far one of the most horrible scenes I've ever had to sit through. And as I said, I've sat through, the turtle being disemboweled in Cannibal Holocaust, and also, the horrific tortures in Salo and whatnot, and Human Centipede. And at the same time, there is this one scene where a woman is forced to give birth, and then the guy ends up fucking the fucking newborn, and I'm sitting watching this film like this the entire time, and I don't close my eyes because the way it's done, it's insanely well done, but at the same time, I want to close my eyes, but I can't look away at the same time. I'm like, I just gotta muscle through it. It's not a movie that is entertaining. It's not a movie that is entertaining for horror film standards. It's pure pain for everyone involved. And I read interviews with the director, and he said that it wasn't supposed to be entertainment. I'm like, well, you pretty much damn well succeeded when it came down to it. And the one thing that I really thought was interesting about the film, considering even though it is insanely graphic, it is insanely vile on so many levels. I wanted to this is the only movie that literally has almost caused me to throw up while watching it. And so, I'm watching the movie. The actors are phenomenal. The production values, and this is this director's first film, and the production values and the acting are top-notch. It makes everything look really believable. The atmosphere is incredibly bleak, dismal, horrific. I mean, he doesn't consider this movie a horror film, but at the same time, it's hard for me not to consider it a horror film. It's so horrific of what happens. I know it's a statement on Serbian politics, as the director says, and actually, if you look back at it, you could pretty much see, it's a challenge on the political world, and on the socio-political world, sorry, because there's definitely elements of society in there, and not just from Serbia, from the world over. You can find comparisons in almost every society, especially in America, and at the same time that these horrific elements are going on, it's one of the most depressing sits I've ever had to sit through. And because the people who are dying, they're not fodder. They're not people who are just there to just be killed. The people who die, the people who get raped and brutally murdered in this movie, are people that you come to, know and kind of in a weird way, kind of care about through the film, and I don't want to give away the ending for those freaks like me out there who would actually go and see this movie. For people who can really actually have the constitution to stomach it, I barely could. So, and I love horror films. I mean, I love getting that type of emotion, that reaction in me, scare. I mean, because that's the era of disgust about me. You can pretty much find that in almost every Cronenberg film. I mean, from Shivers to Scanners to Videodrome to Naked Lunch. Most of his movies had me on the same point, I was kind of disgusted, but at the same time, that's what the director was wanting to try to bring out in you. It's a really, really reactionary film, and it's really good at doing what it needs to do. But Salo was a lot easier to sit through than a Serbian film. I've seen Salo now 3 times, and even though it's hard to sit through that movie, I never want to watch a Serbian film again, ever. And that's interesting for me, because, I've seen, Cronenberg's Shivers 5 times. I've seen Naked Lunch 5 times. And those movies, after a while, you find things that you're able to cope with and like about it, even though the horrific elements of it, like in Videodrome, there are things that keep bringing you back to it. A Serbian film is just one of those movies that I never want to revisit ever again. And my props to the director of this film, because he really did create probably one of the most sequential modern horror masterpieces. A film that is so unbelievably terrible, and not in like, the bad creating way type of way, type of that reactionary, that terrible reaction that you get inside you. He's pretty much he crafted a modern masterpiece when it came down to this. No movie has ever made me react in such a way as a Serbian film. But as for overall standards of both of these movies, Salo, I definitely give a solid 3.5 out of 5 like star rating, if you want to keep going along with that, because it stands as a great testament to the work of the Marquis de Sade. It definitely stands as a good art synopsis of like a kind of art film synopsis of the time in which it was critiquing, and it really is a tragedy that Pier Paolo Pasolini was murdered after the movie came out. Whether or not it was for the movie or for his political reasons, we're not entirely sure. But it's sad that this was his last film, but he definitely went out on a bang. This Serbian film, just because I will never watch the movie again, and because of how well done it was made and how unbelievable the reaction was, with how repulsed I was by almost everything that happens in this movie. Not by the film itself, because the film itself is incredibly well made, and I believe it's one hell of a debut. And the director of the film said that he's probably going to be making more films like it, and I have no idea how in the world I would be able to watch any more of his work. I mean, this movie was harder than something like even the most gruesome scenes in, like, Amores Perros or Gaspar Noé's Irreversible. It's just literally the hardest sit I've ever had to go through for a film. But other than that, for people who are freaks like me, who just love everything about the film industry, everything about the film medium, you want to find everything. I mean, as soon as I heard about Man Bites Dog, I automatically went out and tried to find it and watch the movie, and I fell in love with it, even though it's a really hard film to sit through. The cinemaphiles like me, who just need to watch movies, it's definitely a movie I watch for. I would recommend just once. You never need to see it again past that point. And you can just read commentaries and critiques from other critics who are more into the analytical side of it. But I definitely give it a nice solid 4 out of 5. Because whereas Salo at times could come off as kind of dated or kind of dare I say, campy at moments. Very few, but at moments it was. A Serbian film never let up. It always had the same intensity throughout everything, and you could tell that everyone had the same intensity, and the way that they were able to pull off some of the more horrific rape scenes, especially toward near the end of the film. I won't give that away necessarily, because it is truly a spectacle. But at the same time, if you really can't handle, gory horror films, if you can't even sit through, like, Argento's Suspiria or Opera, or hell, I mean, if you can't sit through, I don't know, the anime When They Cry or Elfenlied, you will not be able to sit through this film. You will not be able to manage through this film. You probably will turn this movie off not even a half hour into it. Actually, probably a lot less than that. But at the same time, both films truly remarkable. Both movies I highly recommend for completely different reasons. And whereas Salo can get to a point where you can stomach what's happening to it, stomach what's happening in the film to a certain degree, like kind of like Cannibal Holocaust. A Serbian film is probably something I will never, ever get used to, nor would I want to get used to watching that movie, because it is so unbelievably horrific. But at the same time, yeah, they're both incredibly well-made movies. So, that's what I've got for you right now. I'm coming out with my next Cinema Historia review. Unfortunately, my most recent, my second episode of Titanic had to get removed because of copyright issues. So I'm not able to show that. And but next review will be for The Prophecy 2, and that's underway right now. I'm making that. My next two short films I'm working on an experimental short called Continuum, and also I'm working on a narrative short called Angels Carrying Savage Weapons. So look for those two coming out in the next few weeks. Hopefully it'll be done. We're running on a really, really tight shooting schedule at the moment, so hopefully the sooner we will be able to kind of orchestrate everything, the better. So thanks, guys.